Hi everyone, we're back with another Talking Reds, or should I say I'm back. I've been away for a little bit of a week, but safe to say I'm back and raring to go now. And we're going to dive right into some of the things that have been happening in the world of LFC over the last 24 hours. And the first subject we're going to discuss, I'm here with John, sorry.
It's all right. Yeah, John Gibbons, hello. I'm back too.
For those of you who don't know, I mean, most of you recognise this wonderful face sitting beside me.
From such videos as eating raw fish.
Yes, indeed. I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about that.
Okay, more to come.
Oh yes, don't worry. But speaking up first, it's kind of a Liverpool situation because it happened in a Liverpool game. But Spurs manager Mauricio Pochettino has had some very interesting things to say about his little mate Dele and the diving. Now, he got his third yellow card for diving against us. It's more than anyone else has had in the last 3 years. But Pochettino doesn't think it's a big problem. He thinks we're going over the top. He thinks we're being a bit sensitive, especially in England. I think the words he used were 20 or 30 years ago, people were celebrating when someone was tricking their opponent. I don't know if that was a reference to the hand of God or not, but if it was, then he's a very cheeky man. But he seems to think it's over the top, it's just a part of play. I mean, there's always been seen there's this kind of difference between the South American way of seeing it and the so-called British way of seeing it. But personally, I think he's kind of right in as much as to say that English people don't dive or have never dived is a bit stupid. I mean, I remember seeing footage of Franny Lee throwing himself down in the 70s, so it's been around for a while. But how do you feel about this, him saying it's kind of all right, or he doesn't mind it when his players are doing it?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sit well with me, the quotes, I'll be honest with you, in terms of, you know, he says, well, it's a way of deceiving your opponent, and the game's all about deceiving your opponents. And look, I think the game's all about what Mo Salah did in stoppage time, kind of not what Lamela did, you know what I mean? And it's one thing saying, well, it's part of the game and we need to accept it. And it's another thing saying that the stakes are so high in football that occasionally footballers will do things, you know, out of desperation or need, or, you know, just general desire to win a game that you wouldn't necessarily agree with. And I'm okay with all that, and I'm not saying we're going to eliminate diving from the game, and I'm not even saying it's the worst thing in the game, but to try and turn it around and almost celebrate it is something that should be rewarded, should be applauded. Just doesn't kind of sit right with me. And I think that the more you go down that path, the more you know we'll bring it in. And it looks like Spurs players practice it to me, to be honest with you. You know, they're one of the best at it. Well, not Dele Alli because he keeps getting caught, but they look like it's something that they work on. And you might say, well, it's like work. You know, the manager there saying it's like a tactic. You know, we work on tactics in training. We work on swapping position. You always try to deceive your opponents in some way. This is just another way. And
it's not like a step over, though, is it? Really,
no,
when you think about it. I mean, and it's very interesting as well that Pochettino's the guy who's come out and said this, because I seem to remember in the 2002 World Cup when Michael Owen dived after a tackle that he made, and he didn't blow it off. He was quite upset, and he's actually mentioned that quite a few times in the time since.
I think that's what he's really part of what he's talking about, the hypocrisy, and I understand that, and I don't think that the English are this bastion of fair play kind of against the rest of the world.
I think that's rubbish
people,
as well.
And I think that probably is rubbish. But at the same time, I think it's. If it's something that we have to accept in the game, it certainly doesn't need to be something that we applaud.
No, and one thing that I've really been struck by recently, the Harry Kane situation for the penalty, it's now accepted as the norm that those kind of things is a penalty. It's almost like he got the opportunity to go down, so he's going to go down and it's getting given a penalty. And that's just the norm now. I don't agree with it, but I don't think that seeing those incidents, we can really say they shouldn't give a penalty anymore, because they're always going to. Like, we always see that there seems to be a new incident that causes all kinds of eruptions, and then slowly that incident becomes the norm. I mean, I was reminded recently of the Rory Fowler incident with Arsenal. Yeah. And if you look at the footage of that, he actually dives out of the way. He dives over the keeper. He doesn't make contact. And yet he's saying, no. If that happened now, do you think he'd be getting a fair play award from FIFA?
I mean, he possibly would, but would he be doing that now? If is the kind of the more pertinent question for me? Is it just, as you say, been accepted? And this is what I was kind of trying to get at before. Is that the more we move the line on diving, the more prevalent I think it'll become. And like you say, if you know, at first it was like, well, if there's contact, he's allowed to go down, or he should be, you know, he's got a right to go down. And then it became, well, if he anticipates the contact, which is what Harry Kane does, he's already going down before Karius touches him. But because there is eventually contact through Kane's fall, that way we've decided that's a penalty now. And so we're moving the line more and more, and I think that's what Pochettino's trying to do again. And as I say, I think it's a dangerous thing, because I don't think it's why people go to watch football. I don't think it's why people fall in love with the game. And as I say, you know, Mo Salah's goal was a fantastic way to win the game, and if Spurs would have equalised through a brilliant piece of play, you'd say, oh, fair play, they've come back again. The fact that they don't just kind of leaves a sour taste in the mouth a little bit. And look, football's a sport, and football's there, you know, sports are there to be won, but it's also what we do on a Saturday to enjoy ourselves, and it's what, you know, inspires people all around the world. And I don't know, the more cynical you get, and the more you move away from that, I think it does take an element of enjoyment out of it.
Yeah, very much so. And I worry about the keepers. I mean, for once, someone needs to stand up for the keepers, because, I mean, in that situation, if Karius had just stopped, just not touched him, and Kane had kept the ball, walked around him and tapped it in, what would we all have said?
Yeah, why hasn't he made himself big? You know, he's far too easy. Yeah, you're right, that's a good point.
Now, speaking of Loris Karius,
very nice.
I did there.
Very nice.
He's been talking as well in the press recently about whether or not Liverpool really need to buy a new keeper, how he feels he's progressed in the team. He's backed himself, which I'm really quite happy to hear. Personally, I'm not one of the people who thought he was at fault for Wanyama's goal. I thought he had generally a good performance against Spurs. He saved a couple of situations where, if it wasn't for him, they would have scored a goal. Not just the penalty save, the one against Son I'm thinking of. And that was off the back of a solid, if unspectacular, performance against Huddersfield. So I'm hoping this is the beginning of a little bit of confidence in him. I mean, I think the fact that the club put him up for the interview shows that they've got confidence in him. What do you reckon, John? You pleased to hear him talking?
Yeah, I think, look, there was a few tweets last night before I'd seen the interview saying, oh, here we go, another Liverpool player, you know, speaking out too quickly after they played all right. And so I was a bit worried when I saw it, but I don't think he's done that at all. He's not come out and claimed, you know, he's playing brilliantly. He's not come out and claimed that now he's the number one forever. He's just said, I've got my opportunity now, I'm really pleased, and I want to try and prove between now and the end of the season that I'm Liverpool number one, and why not? You know, he's got the shirts at the moment, and he should want to back himself, and he should want to stay here. We want footballers to want to stay at Liverpool Football Club. And so, yeah, I didn't see anything wrong with the comments, as you say, quite the opposite really. If he's got a determination to prove that he's worth that shirt, then great. And he's right, he's got till the summer now, because you know, we can't buy anyone before then, so he's got till the summer to prove it.
And hopefully, like I say, this is going to be one of those situations where we, as a fan base, can kind of get behind him a little bit. Now, I know that obviously it's one of those situations whereby if he does make another mistake, we might find ourselves back at square one, but I like to think that we're seeing the benefit of him being a little bit more calm, a little bit less, okay, if I do anything wrong now, it's all over. Because that was kind of, reading between the lines of what he said, I think that was kind of the key point that came out for me. He said that he feels he's been a little bit unlucky in some times in terms of the scrutiny compared with him, compared with other clubs. But he also says he knows he's at a big club, he knows that this is what's going to happen. So I like to think that he's now feeling a little bit more comfortable in what it takes to be at Liverpool, and he can ride out any particular storm. So yeah, well in Loris. Hope it continues. Now, this might be some news to some people, but we actually signed someone yesterday.
Yeah, transfer window means nothing. We bought a lad.
I mean, it's kind of ironic because we only bought one guy in January. I mean,
no, hang on. We bought two.
Well, no, Van
Dijk, and then we bought
him in December though.
Oh, well, the technicalities. Okay, so we bought him pre-transfer window, and now we bought this. So we've signed more people outside the transfer window than in this winter.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Jurgen just does what he wants. Bless him. Now, a little bit about this guy. He's an 18-year-old Colombian. His name's Anderson Arroyo. and he's been loaned out immediately to Mallorca, who play in Segunda B in Spain for the rest of the season.
Sending an 18-year-old lad to Mallorca just seems dangerous to me. Like, I mean, I don't know who's thought this through. He's from Colombia. We've presumably living with his family, and we've brought him over here, and we've sent him to Mallorca. He's going to be bar rapping in Magaluf by next week.
Yeah, we might want to keep an eye on his Instagram account just to be on the safe side. But he's another fullback, which is interesting because Tony Gallagher, who we bought earlier on from Falkirk, he was also a fullback.
Yeah.
He can play on either side.
Okay.
I don't know that much about him. I know that I have a reputation for watching every ball that's kicked everywhere in the world.
But not Colombian youth football.
There's not enough time on the planet.
Maybe sure it's on.
Well, this is it. I'd actually have to be in Colombia. But the reports from kind of people like Tim Vickery, spoken about him, says that he's a good young prospect. I think it's one for the future. I don't think the fact that he's going to Mallorca and Segunda B means that he's not a real first team threat from now. But I just hope that he doesn't get caught in the same work permit trap that Alan de Souza's been in for the last 3 years. I mean, what's happened to that kid?
Yeah, it's a real shame with Alan. He was signed, there was a Nigerian kid who was signed at the same time, TAW as well, who's been playing out a little bit in Germany and in Holland as well. And they're both in a kind of similar sort of situation, really, whereas because the UK work permit laws are stricter than those in mainland Europe, they can't play for Liverpool basically, and that's at any level. So even kind of under 23s football, they can play in friendlies, which is why we've seen a little bit of Alan and always been impressed with him. But it's a situation where you've got to feel for the kid first of all, because you look at Alan, he's a young lad playing football, which is great, but also he's a Brazilian kid who's we've moved here, there, and everywhere. He's gone out to Finland and
he's in Cyprus at the moment, isn't he?
Apologies, all sorts of places, and so. It's an interesting situation for the young lad, and it's an interesting sell to the parents, isn't it? I'll come and join Liverpool, but actually, you're not going to be able to pay for us for a while. I mean, Colombia in theory is easier to get international caps for than it is for Brazil. A little bit less competition, so he might find that he could be on a little bit more of a fast track. But you do wonder what the plan is. You do wonder how they sell it to these young kids, and you do wonder when they might see. I don't like to see kind of young players. Not hoarded, but you know what I mean. Used as a commodity, and the idea that he might be someone we can make money off in the future doesn't kind of sit well with me at all. I'm not saying that is the plan because I don't know. I'm not involved in the discussions, but I'm always a little bit wary of it. I hope he's being looked after. I hope that the checking up on him in Mallorca, kind of jokes aside, and I hope that one day we do see him in the Liverpool shirt, because you want to get excited about signings, don't you?
I mean, Alan must be really gutted because he's basically spending his summer holidays in Liverpool every year, and we sent this other lad off to Mallorca.
Yeah,
but yeah, best of luck to Anderson over there in Mallorca, and Alan as well. I think he did quite well. His last time I saw
he's a really nice footballer
from Limassol. He is a great footballer. Let's hope he can get in a Liverpool shirt on a more regular basis from the future coming in. But I think it's time for the papers. And the papers today have been pretty much dominated by one story. And Swansea fans, unfortunately, it's not your 8-1 victory last night. It's Chelsea. It's Antonio Conte. And I mean, it's an unflattering picture, but I feel like it kind of goes to how much trouble this man is in.
Well, the Daily Star's gone for crowning out, crowning out, which is it's a nice pun, but that shows the ridiculous how you can go from Premier League champions with the team that no one thought was going to win the league. Probably third, fourth, even fifth favourites at one point last season. Wins the championship, and then months later, and not for the first time for the Chelsea manager, looking like he might be facing the sack.
They're bored of him, Gibbo. They're bored of him. Like, that's the thing that I actually mentioned in this paper and in the Daily Star. They're bored. They're fed up with the drills. They're fed up with the manager having bad mood swings. Does anyone want to remind me who their last manager was? But I mean, they were upset by the cost of text business, and it just all seems like you say, he won the league too early. Now, is this something, we've seen this with Chelsea before, we've seen this with Chelsea pretty much every single time they change a manager, which is every 2 years or so, is that the players start speaking through their intermediates, start leaking out into the press. They're unhappy with this or unhappy with that, whatever. And Roman Abramovich, through whatever reason, decides to indulge them, thinks he can get someone else better, and then moves on to the next one. Now, the problem is that it seems to, if you look at the trophy hall, it seems to be working. Now,
Yeah.
do you think they're ever going to stop doing it? Do you think he's ever going to give someone a bit of a run?
I mean, I don't know. As you say, you can't argue with the trophy haul in the last 10 years. You know, they've certainly won more than Liverpool have, and so they're doing something right, even though, you know, it seems a strange situation. But at the same time, there seems to be an unhealthy amount of player power, I would say, at the club, whereas if the manager tries to get tough on certain individuals or tries to, you know, be a bit moody sometimes on that, you should see my mood swings in the office, but he tries to get a bit moody sometimes, that you know, that you can just kick up a fuss in it and he'll be gone. And at some point, you think Roman might have to think, well, maybe it's a few of these senior players who I need to be replacing rather than managers all the time. It's more difficult to replace players, it's more expensive, so the easy thing is to swap a manager, but they're going to run out. And look, we were speaking to Rebecca Knight, we do a show called The Coach Home on the Anfield Wrap Tour Player, which is where we speak to fans from other clubs. And Rebecca was saying that she's worried that they're going to, well, first of all, run out of managers, and secondly, get a bit of a reputation for kind of how they treat them as well. She doesn't think Conte's been treated particularly well. She talked, even went back to Rafa Benitez and talked about kind of how he was treated in the club, considering he was there to, and his quote here, do them a favour.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and it kind of didn't go really well. There was Ancelotti sacked in the tunnel, and so it's. You know, it's going to be maybe commonplace, even with Roman's millions and even with the star players that they've got, that the managers just think, you know what, it's more trouble than it's worth.
Well, I mean, the Mail seem to agree with Rebecca, as, to be honest, most people do. She's fantastic. And they go on here and say how many more would they have won if they had actually stuck with some of those guys. And like you say, the roll call of managers, it's the top of the top. Benitez, Ancelotti, okay, Villas-Boas, you know. But all of these guys, now, if you were to say who's the top manager who's out of work, Carlo Ancelotti would be the first one to come back. Abramovich would have to get down on his knees and beg him to come back. And that's the situation you don't want to get into.
Yeah.
Now, extrapolating this across the rest of the Premier League, the one thing I've been worried about is that because Chelsea have been so successful with this tactic, are we going to start seeing it happen in other clubs? Obviously, Arsenal haven't quite pulled the trigger on Arsene Wenger yet, but you can start to see remnants of it, and people being unhappy with a certain level of success. What would now constitute success has changed. I mean, there's a mention here as well as the fact that Conte wouldn't be the only manager to get sacked the season after he won the league. In fact, it'd be almost the 5th in a row for it to happen. So
crazy. It
is crazy, and so much of it has come down to how, well, what have you done for me lately? The now element of modern football. I don't want to feel like I'm going to go against modern football.
I thought you were going to go into society at one point there, Mel.
I'll tell you. The link is there. Maybe that's for another show. But, I mean, are you worried, John, that other clubs are going to look at Chelsea and start thinking maybe we should start doing it a bit more like that? I mean, we as a club are probably not really going to be doing that. I think you look down the league, so people to focus on the Premier League, and they're always going to because it's the biggest one, but actually the shelf life of managers in the Championship, League 1, League 2 is kind of even shorter, and there is that idea, I think, now that if you're not doing it for them now, then get someone else in who does. You always think of stability being a way through to success, but maybe you know, Chelsea are kind of proving, if you like, that that's not necessarily the case. I think it's a shame if you could look at it from a Liverpool point of view. You could, you know, when you can see progress, that you'd look to change it because you haven't got what you want as quickly as how you want it. And I think if Liverpool's points total goes up again this season, which I think it will, by the way, then I think you can see obvious progress at Liverpool. It's frustrating that we haven't won a trophy because we're all craving them, but if you're moving towards it, then you should always feel that, well, that's something worth sticking with, rather than just kind of throwing your toys out the pram and saying, I haven't got what I want right now, so get someone else who can bring me instant gratification. Well, there's hoping that the club are listening to this. I mean,
they always do, Mo. You love it, especially on a Wednesday.
Oh, you guys. But yeah, seriously, Antonio I don't feel for you because you're obviously going to get paid out millions, but let's hope that you can actually get to stay there and maybe dig yourself out of the hole that you potentially created yourself. Okay, now talking more from the Anfield Wrap, kind of a little bit of a lead on to that as well. The big question, the show is coming out today. It should be coming out in about an hour's time. And the question this week is, what constitutes success for Liverpool? Now, obviously, we were just talking, silverware has always been how we've defined ourselves historically, but in the era of the Champions League and so much being put on being in it and being out it, has that changed? Do we still feel with thinking the same way? You'll be able to hear it debated on the big question coming out, as I say, midday. And at 4 o'clock, we've got Wildcards, another old classic show coming out. I'm not sure do you know who's on the show this week?
Do you know what, Wildcards is wild in that we recorded them last week, so I can't even remember if I was on it. But if I was, I bet I was very good.
And of course, this weekend, we've got the Scandinavian trips coming up.
Yeah. Still tickets available for going out to Oslo and Stockholm. Stockholm on the Friday, Oslo on the Sunday night. So if you want to come, tickets are still available. Just go to our website and there's a banner at the top and you can click that for details of how to come. It's going to be really good fun. We're really looking forward to it, going over with Red Spet. I'm not quite sure how it ended up with me eating raw fish in the street.
I was going to say, you're going to be bringing your own food?
Quite a few Scandinavians have messaged me saying, like, we don't eat that, don't worry. So, like, so I think it's going to be fine. I'm just going to
saw you coming.
Yeah, I've heard they got McDonald's and everything, so I'll be fine.
We'll look forward to that, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Cheers.